remember going into a school in South Africa many years ago, and on the wall was a plaque which said, if I can remember it rightly, "No written word nor spoken plea can teach young hearts what men should be. Not all the books on all the shelves, but what the teachers are themselves."
True.
And you know, my dears, the teacher isn't by any means always a person. Who is the teacher? Now, here and now, in this presence, Jesus described this Spirit that is with us always as the Comforter and the Teacher who will teach us all things. And it does, doesn't it? Because there's no more question when you find that. And if you go for a walk, particularly in the country, and you just look at the trees and the sky and the grass, they're also your teachers, your comforters, aren't they? The guardian angels who are accompanying you home and showing you the way. No written word nor spoken plea. So you see how I'm not really too keen on human recipes. The clever people who think they know, I'm a bit not too keen on that. Answers. It's actually two lessons, Petar. One, that there is this common language, correct? And two, that what we call communication, which is largely consists of talking or trying to explain things, is not. It's of communication of a very secondary and lower, less perfect level. Mm-hmm. Therefore it's full of frustration and fumblings and wish I hadn't or wish I had, and all sorts of contortions that we go through trying to convey our thoughts, feelings, etc. to one another, and not often succeeding. But there is that which is completely simple and natural, which we may occasionally be blessed to experience. And when we know it, something rings true, and we don't forget it.
Yes.
And when we tell it, everybody understands. It's a very good illustration, you see, of where we are, of this sin that we live in, and this really almost demonic effect of what we call communication, which is just confusion of tongues, a babel, babel and a babble.
Yeah.
Just feel this presence now. How utterly simple it is. completely effortless, isn't it? And we all know the most important lesson of life. We love, we are loved, we are free, and everything's all right. God is with us. And even closer, we are actually. Where does I am end and God begin? And there's complete understanding, isn't there? Trust. Most of our progress is really in realizing the muddle we're in and just getting fed up with it. I don't think there's ever a moment really, certainly not in my life, when I became aware of God. I wouldn't know how to answer that. I think for nearly everybody has experiences of... If you ask people when were they happy, nearly everybody in my experience will think for a while, and they'll probably dig out of their past some funny little experience, maybe when they were in their pram or maybe on holiday, or maybe just looking out the kitchen window when they just were inexplicably happy. Things just fell into place without knowing why. They were just happy, and they remember it all their lives, like this story of Petar and the magpie. These things just happen. At what point do we become aware of God? Well, I don't know. As a child, I was a country boy. I always loved the space. I very, very early on, I remember getting into conflict with my elder sister and being unhappy at home and just getting out into the garden. We were surrounded by open fields. I just felt better out in the fields, unbothered by these human problems. I suppose that was my early experiences of something bigger than myself, which later on I came to call God. I always loved just being outside, just the open spaces. The wider the spaces, the better. Where does that end and God begin? That's why I'm a bit shy about using these words, because they immediately, you start using words, you immediately sort of put you bring it down into time and space. You divide it, don't you? You put yes and no, this or that. Life started here or there. Instead of it's a sort of gradual continuum, isn't it, of expansion. It's like we grow up out of childhood, we grow out of being a youth, we grow out of teenagers, we grow into something else. Exactly the same with spiritual work. Our early experiences, gradually, without quite knowing why, they expand. But if we're interested in this subject, you read things, you meet people, have experiences, and gradually, without quite knowing why, you suddenly begins to make more sense to you. It becomes more important to you. You begin to realise it's what you actually want. Choices get narrowed down. You eliminate what, you try many things and they don't seem to satisfy you, get bored with them, move on to something else. So it is with this spiritual work. You gradually grow out of alternatives and find this becomes ever more really the focus of what you want. Then it becomes easier. Then you actually want to meditate, perhaps more than you did when you started, when it was a bit of a chore, duty you felt you ought to do. Yes, we love to. When did it happen? You know, how did it happen? How do you answer? I don't know. It's the way we work. Our minds want to categorize everything, don't they? Give it names, little boxes. Yes, I suppose that was one of the highlights of my life, looking back. I was in the Namibian desert, of course alone. I always travelled alone. And when the car broke down, that's right, and there's some rocks nearby, and I climbed up and I found a cave up there. And I remember it was Christmas time, and I was quite alone. And I had enough water and some little dry food and stuff. I was okay, and I was meditating there, and I could meditate cross-legged then. I can't now, I'm afraid. And I had a little rustling and opened my eyes, and there was a little fox sniffing around me. I felt so thrilled. And he came again next day. Yes, I thought that was one of the great honours of my life. I didn't move and I didn't say anything or do anything, just opened my eyes, and he wasn't in a hurry, just sniffed and went away again. It's funny, we do think of these intimate contacts with nature as something of very great privilege, aren't they? It's a great honour. It's interesting how many saints had some sort of contact with an animal, didn't they? I always loved that.
There is another very poignant moment in one of the interviews you did with Conscious TV, when you told about you were just about to sell your first farm.
Yes.
And you were sitting on the edge of the field,
yes.
very heavy mood, and sad. And suddenly, from across the field, a ram came slowly towards you. It put his head on your lap, stayed with you for a couple of minutes, and slowly walked back to his friends.
Yes.
I found that it brought tears in your eyes, mine as well. But I found it one of the most poignant things that I've ever heard.
Do you know, Petar, it's very interesting that interviewer picked up that little description out of my book. Of course, I didn't know what the questions were going to be at all in that interview. It came as a surprise. And of all that I've ever said and written, I think more people have picked up that little story than anything else, doesn't it? All the clever words, all that's human sort of presentation are sort of overshadowed by the reality of that simple experience. And countless people have said it's brought them to tears. Well, it brought me to tears, still does. Look at me. God, think of it. Now there's the heart working, you see. This is why, you see, the heart you forget about all these rules and recipes, dear, and how to meditate and all this sort of stuff. You just forget about it all. The heart just lifts you up. So follow your heart. Trust the heart. No. It is not wisdom only to be wise and on the inward vision close the eyes, but it is wisdom to believe the heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, God bless animals. In many people all over the world love their dogs, don't they? And what's the, what I say, the best meditation is go for a walk, and most people, one of the reasons they have dogs, isn't it, to make them go for walks? The two go together very well. If you want to learn about love, look in a dog's eyes and learn from dogs. That's the best, one of the best books there are to teach you how to live, aren't they? Devotion. Dogs and horses. Those lucky enough to have access to them. I've forgotten your question. Got any more questions here? You're keeping the meeting going, aren't you, this morning?
Okay, one more.
All right. Okay, let's have it.
Thank you. This is so beautiful to listen to this fountain of wisdom.
Now, this is a classic example, you see, of duality. Now, duality. A few minutes ago we were experiencing completion, weren't we? This utter simplicity of completion, of just being at one. Remember? Can we just reconnect with it again? Start off with the senses. That's right. Start with the senses, and then just like you're getting into a hot bath at the end of the day, just sort of sink into the hot water and let the warmth soak into you. So you just like this. You feel this oneness. Now just realize that in this there are no difficult choices at all. It's all just one. And we lose that and we're back in the world again. And it's all difficult, problematic. What do I do? Now then, you may be aware that in all the religions and teachings in the world there is three. Three is the fundamental law of life, called the third point. In Christianity, the Trinity. 1, 2, and 3. 3 makes complete. Now look, here is duality. Either shall I do this or do that? And here is the oneness that contains it, you see? The peace that surpasses and contains everything. Now, things get impossible when we forget the third point. We try to function without this third point. So we're incomplete and our decisions are incomplete and we never get it right. And the world by and large functions on duality. Now people do get hurt in this world, of course we do, because we are absent from the presence of God. And being absent from that completion, we are incomplete and we never get it right. We're never satisfied in this world. We never get enough love, enough peace, enough freedom, and eventually we never get enough life, because that's why we die. We run out. We run out of the credit, as it were, that we come with, and so eventually we all end up dead, because we are away from the infinite source of life. So don't expect to find perfect solutions to this world. But if you connect with the third point. At least you may do what you have to do with at least a sense of proportion. And at best, a surrender to higher authority. For whereas we don't know, God knows. And it's a funny thing that the less we trust our own knowledge and trust to God, how things work out in surprising ways. Think of this little miracle that's happened in this room for the last couple of hours. I haven't got a clue what to say. Absolutely no idea what to say. I don't know. And somehow we've had a very attentive couple of hours, haven't we? Where does it come from? I don't know. Do you? The Bible talks of two things, you see. This is the arm of flesh that fails. No matter how much artists may draw mighty muscle men and the heroes of this world, unfortunately, all flesh ends up withering away and back to the grave. And the arm of God is infallible. I know it seems remote at first, that this stillness is actually power. It's actually the almighty, the most mighty, the greatest power in the world. It just seems a sort of wishy-washy alternative to what we call real life when we start, isn't it? So sort of rather vague, beyond or something. We get the first glimmerings of stillness or peace or this third point. But see, as we become ever deeper acquainted and familiarized with it, it actually becomes more and more significant and real to us. And you can see with what confidence I refer to it now, because it's so obvious to me that the end of my failure, it just takes over, and you realize that this really is the power behind the scene. Like the unseen woman used to be the power in the home. The man's out there in the street talking, but the women are the real doers, the real sort of power of the household, quietly working in the kitchen, unseen and unknown. The men go out and make a lot of thunder or stories out there, and it's the women that do the work. Well, in a way, it's rather dissimilar to this, isn't it? That this unseen reality, the God, really is the primal cause of everything, you see. And you've only got to consider nature, the wonderful order of it all, the way in which all these millions of species somehow manage, don't they? And somehow it works. The unfoldment of the seasons and all that. We call it God's world. Well, all we've got to do is to surrender to that third point, you see, and something of that perfection then has an opportunity to infiltrate the world of man. And it's infinitely more effective than your or my efforts. I know, like you all, as a young man, I thought it was on my shoulders to make the world a better place. I went forth with my axe and my spade to grow more food and help the hungry and solve the world's problems. And now I just meditate. Because you realize a more efficient way of solving your problems. We learn by our mistakes, you learn by getting it wrong. Mm. This world is full of pain. It's a veil of tears. That's its nature, you see. Because we are absent from, we're incomplete. And this is another reason why we grow to love meditation, because the one thing meditation never does is hurt us. It's always gentle, it's always kind, it always receives us, it never judges us. It's safe, isn't it? That's why it's called salvation. Salvation of the soul. And then something of this wholeness that we discover may spread. To make whole, be whole.